For the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Student representatives, Aaron and Nick, please.
Good evening. Field Day was held on October 9th. It was a little chilly out, but it was really a great success. The theme was building an inclusive community. It was a school-wide. It started with a school-wide assembly. Mr. Lungarini gave students a challenge to meet 3 peers whom they didn't previously know. All the clubs and organizations in the school held booths and ran activities that ranged from competitive to cooperative. They included everything from athletics to the arts. The Pomperaug Vision Council had their first meeting on October 15th. It was comprised of 4 teachers, 2 administrators, 9 students, 11 parents, and 5 community members. At this meeting, the group discussed the culture and climate of Pomperaug and identified areas of focus for the school year. This year's focus is on developing character and creating an inclusive community. You'll hear more about this in Mr. Lungarini's speech. All of our sports teams are well into the season, and registration is now open for winter sports. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. October 10th, we had the Pomperaug debate team attended a tournament at Jill Barlow High School, and the topic for the tournament was whether the United States should raise the minimum wage. And one of our varsity teams won first place in the tournament, and we had another novice team place 4th. And because of this, both teams have qualified for the state final in March. There's also this week an NHS blood drive, and this is a biannual blood drive run by our school's chapter of National Honor Society in partnership with the Red Cross. And teachers and students over the age of 17 can donate blood this Wednesday. We also have upcoming inductions for 2 different honor societies later this week. Spanish Honor Society is holding their induction on October 28th at 7 p.m., and Science National Honor Society is holding their induction on October 29th, at 6 p.m. We also have Spirit Week coming up very soon. This is the week of November 2nd to November 6th, and the themes have been picked by our student council, and the themes include Pajama Day, American Day, Pink Out, or on Wednesdays we wear Pink Day, and Class Color Day. And this week is going to be finished off with a pep rally on Friday at the end of school, and a homecoming game at 7 o'clock, and a homecoming dance at 8 o'clock also will be on Friday night. And we are all excited to dress up and show our school spirit. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any questions of the student representatives?
I was just curious which side of the debates the debate team took. Do you know?
Well, I'm on the Pomperaug debate team, and throughout tournaments we have to debate both sides of the issue. So we've debated both the United States should raise the minimum wage and that we should not.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Presentations, I'll turn the meeting over to Mrs. Botsford.
I just want to welcome Mr. Lungarini back to the podium. Last year at about this time, he had given us a report on respect and responsible decision-making at Pomperaug High School, and this is this year's update. So thank you, Glenn.
Madam Chair, Superintendent Botsford, thank you for the opportunity to come before you again to present some of the programs that we're able to run and where we're looking to go this year. As we embarked on this venture last year, we decided to make it a point of emphasis to look at the idea of respect and responsible decision making. At that time, we ran a lot of short programs through our advisories. We looked at the way that we interact with each other, what our expectations are. We focused quite a bit, actually, last year on the area of substance abuse in a lot of the programming that we did. We had a week in November dedicated to programming specific to the topic of respect and responsible decision making. During that time, we included programs for some of our special needs kids, where we ran a program called the Spoke Benders. That was a wheelchair basketball game where the Spoke Benders thoroughly destroyed us out there on the floor. They were quite amazing. We had an assembly with a guest speaker, Ed Geardy, who talked about a motivational method. It was geared towards the idea of how making good decisions, how setting goals, how working past adversity, and not allowing distractions and obstacles like drugs and alcohol coming in can negatively affect you. He was very well received. We also ran last year the NAMES program for our sophomore students in our sophomore class. This was a program geared towards diversity and looking at the way that we treat each other and how bullying and harassing can affect our students. We were very happy and proud of the connection and partnership that we had with SMART and a parent education night that was run by, in conjunction with SMART and our PTO, where we had members of the Region 15 community, the police department, social workers, SMART, who were able to come out and provide for our parents a lot of information in particular to social hosting, but also other issues that affect our community. And then finally in this, I feel last year we really had a strong recommitment to student accountability. We did this through things such as refocusing on the passport system that we have with our students to hold them accountable for the time that they are in the hallways or that they are outside of class. And also with our deans looking at period by period attendance and ways that we can help find those students that maybe where they're not supposed to be and coach them and get them back into class when they should be there. And then also looking at the reasoning and rationale behind that and providing support to our students where necessary. The result of all this work culminated in what we refer to this year, and we unveiled this in October. On October 9th, our field day. Nick had mentioned previously that there was an assembly that kicked this off, and in this assembly, we unveiled what we refer to as our Panther Moral Compass. In this, this is the culmination of advisory work that was done last year, where we asked students to respond to the different questions and different discussions on what should guide our decision-making process and the type of culture that we need here. The main directional points of north, south, east, and west that you see are those characteristics which were most prominent in student responses. This work was tallied by our student council, and you see those aspects of respect, perseverance, diversity, and support that they see as the cornerstones of what should make up our responsible decision-making in the way that we treat others. And the points in between is what our students saw as those things necessary for us to embrace in order to achieve those goals. And that's where they're looking for kindness, from direction from our adults and others. That idea of appreciation, that it's not just the negative things that we should talk about, but find times that we could recognize and appreciate all the positive things that happen as well. And again, that goes in with that positivity, that idea of positive behavioral supports. A good example of that is a program called Caught Being Excellent that our assistant principal, Mrs. Sarazen, runs, where she gets nominations from staff members and from other students to recognize kids that have done something that goes above and beyond the call of what we ask of them every day. So in this, we looked at what is PHS's commitment to acceptance, and we start looking at where we want to evolve this towards. Earlier this year, as you know, the board took the step to formally approve a long-distance district goal, and in that you identified the different 21st century learning skills that you believed all of our Region 15 students should embrace and develop in their career. And highlighted in red for you here is the idea of character, and that standard that stands out in the work that we're trying to accomplish through these programs, through the advisory programs this year, to really highlight that element of character and how we interact with each other. What we're noticing is that there are a lot of things that make us different, and we find that strength in the differences that we have that provide for us so many different opportunities that our students get to engage in and experience. But there's also similarities that we have that all bring us together, and what we look at to say really makes us Panthers and have that pride in our community in what we are. I think overwhelmingly the majority of students that we have here do have a commitment to this. We see this in the activities when I hear Erin talk about the debate team that she's on, and we hear other students talk about the pride in the clubs and the activities that they're engaged in, their performances in some of their classes, the energy that they have about the plays that are coming up, the sporting events that they're involved in. there is that strong connection that we have that brings that together and ties us as one community that we want to focus on this year. On our travel and in our road to accomplishing these goals, there were two things that recently were developed that I think have been a big step forward in us bringing our entire community together for this purpose. The first is the Pomperaug Vision Council. With this is a body of all of our stakeholders, administrators, students, parents, community members, and we get together to look at those elements which should drive our school culture and climate for every student. What we're particularly proud of from this end is if you look at the numbers in parentheses there, that's the number of each stakeholder group that's on there. And with a little math, you can see that the students, the parents, and the community members far outnumber the administrators and teachers. And that's a point that we are proud of this group with, because it's not about, our culture and climate isn't just about what our teachers experience. It's more about what our kids experience and what they need to walk in to feel that they are respected and that they have the ability to share their thoughts and that they can come here and this is a safe place for them. It's a task that is an important one and that we have some work ahead of us in truly establishing and creating, but I'm confident that we can do that. We also, from this, had a group that we divided out into 9 members to look specifically at something that we were originally titling as Diversity Day, and this is going to be held on November 25th. It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. In coming together with that, we decided not to call it Diversity Day, and one of those purposes is this just isn't a one-day thing. It's something that we really want to build forward and something that we want to continue with. So we are actually looking at this day as creating inclusive community. And that's a title that we're going to carry forward as we continue on with the work throughout this year and moving forward next year to add on to that concept of responsible decision-making and respect. Actually, one of our other student council representatives, Nick, is a great example of that. He spends a lot of his free time volunteering in the rooms with our special education students and our students that Nick has really developed a close relationship with and does a great job working with their students. And we see more of that coming out in our students every day, and that's something that we see is very special. We realize that in order for us to be successful, not only in the responsible decision-making that we were talking about last year, because we're not done with that work either. We see this year that we want to have a focus and move on and talking about things like an inclusive community where we want each other to have the respect that and understanding and education that we do have differences, but again, there are things and similarities that we have that bring us all together. But our work isn't done yet on that idea of making responsible decisions. High school years are very tough years for kids. Teenagers start to experience a lot of independence during this time, but oftentimes we forget a little bit about that idea of interdependence where we still need to rely on each other and take care of each other. So we are still looking at things like substance abuse. We are still looking at things like alcohol and making good choices and how that affects us. But just as damaging as those things can be to us, so can things like name calling, so can things like harassment, so can things like not understanding how comments or jokes about somebody's religion can affect somebody else. They could have just as many damaging effects as those substances can have on us. And so we build on that aspect this year with that idea of character, which one of the goals that the board has developed. So we're doing that through a lot of different ways. Student focus groups, commitment to advisory time, which we have increased this year. Parent education opportunities, which we're seeing partly through the Vision Council that we've created. Collaboration with community resources, where we continue to reach out to organizations like SMART to run impactful programs. Expectations of positive behaviors from all of our stakeholders. This is expectations we have from our students, our teachers, our coaches, our parents. It's not just about kids either. The way that adults interact with adults and the way that adults interact with kids is just as important as the way kids interact with each other. And that idea that we look to celebrate student achievements. It's not just that we can focus on one area to talk about or celebrate, but we need to look and really celebrate what we're all the things we're doing from an academic standpoint, an artistic and athletic and interpersonal, it's important that our kids are recognized in front of their peers for this great work that they're doing. Last year, we talked about something called inputs, impacts, outputs, and impacts. So from our standpoint last year, this is what we were looking at, that through Region 15, a collaborative effort of program will be offered to students, staff, and parents to contribute toward enhance a safe, respectful environment that allows our students to succeed. That input hasn't changed. We're still looking at the same thing. We're just looking at it more concentrated through the lens of character this year. We're looking for an output from that effort that we put in, what our students, our parents, and our teachers bring to the table. We're looking for our students and staffs to engage in those meaningful conversations, whether it's during a full-day activity like the Creating the Inclusive Community, or through small group activities like advisory, or in just day-to-day interactions that we have with each other. Our expectation of the output is that we see students making decisions about things like substance abuse, diversity, and the type of environment that we want in a very positive way. We have two impacts that we're looking for this. Our long-term impact is that we have a student and staff that practice and put into action the characteristics of the PHS moral compass that we shared with you earlier to improve our culture and acceptance and produce a safe and healthier school environment. And initially, right now, we're seeing an initial impact of fewer discipline incidents comparative to this time last year. There can be a variety of reasons that go into why we're seeing that. The scheduling can be something that can point to that. Just simply, we have fewer passing times, we have fewer opportunities for kids. But I do think that we're seeing more students who are stepping forward and calling each other on some items. But in order for us to truly be where we want to be, we need to continue to find ways that the impact is that we empower our students to have the confidence and have the ability to step forward and speak to our teachers and speak to our administrators and speak to each other when they see something that they know is wrong. The sense that I get right now is that students are making the right decision. They're able to recognize the difference between what's a positive behavior and what's a negative behavior. But I don't see yet that our students feel that they're empowered enough that they can step forward without concern of how that might come back to them. So we continue to work on that, and it's a major focus in building that character for this year. Again, we understand that our road to that success is always going to be under construction, but we're guiding that through our Panther Moral Compass. And somewhere along the way, you've probably heard one of those catchphrases that our kids end our announcements with every day now. It is a great day to be a Panther. We're very proud of the school that we have and very proud of the steps and the measures we're taking to make it even better. Thank you for your time.
Any questions of Mr. Longarini?
I have one question. On your Pomperaug Vision Council, you have 9 students. Are they from all of the grade levels, or?
Yes, the 9 students that we have, they actually the only grade level that isn't represented there, I think, is freshmen, but they represent sophomore, juniors, and seniors. They represent a variety of student interest as well. Some of them are honor students. Some of them are actually, some of our students that maybe struggle a little bit more. And we also have students that are athletes, students that are other club members. It's a good mix.
How are they selected? By the teachers, or by, how do you basically, or do they volunteer?
Pure volunteer. And no student who was interested was denied. And there were a few others that that I recruited because I wanted to have that cross section. And they've been great. We've had one meeting. It was one of the most informative meetings that we've had. Parent representation was the same. When I initially looked to do this, we talked about having 4 representatives from each of those stakeholder groups. But the interest was so big, we decided to have everybody, and we agreed at that initial meeting that when we had tasks we wanted to do, such as the Inclusive Community Day, that we would take a smaller task force out of that group to bring back to the larger group some of the decisions that we're making, and that's what we did for November 25th. It's worked great so far. You're welcome.
I just wanted to ask, so you mentioned the advisory time, sort of relevant topic, just from what we got done discussing the hour prior. So the commitment to ongoing support through increased advisory time. And so some of us, as you know, we were there at you took us to an advisory class at the high school. And I could see myself, like just with the discussion that the teacher had with the students in that advisory period, like I could see the compass points just in what she was asking and encouraging. But how do you, if you come up with some high level, I don't know, plan, how do you push it down to all those different periods? 'Cause it's not like it's a curriculum. Like how do you do that?
The best way to push it down is to not push it down. So what we've taken the time to doing is actually build it through the middle. So we've talked with our students, we've talked with our teachers about the type of programming, the type of environment that they'd like to see and that they're comfortable with, and we build it out from what the interest and what the strong belief is from the student core and from the teacher core, and those things combined is what helps develop that meaningful relationship. From the top end, what we do is our goal and our job is to take those ideas and those concepts that they truly believe in and now shape that into programming and lessons that connect with them. So for example, as we're talking about trying to have that inclusive community, one thing that we did with the students last Wednesday, I had all the students in the auditorium for advisory, and I did a little talk for them. They won't say it was little, it was 20 minutes. They might say it was more than little, but the title of it was Beyond Boundaries, and we talked about how we can start shaping a community that actively cares for others. And I used a little bit of poetry and some other things to try to highlight what the difference is between an independent culture and an interdependent culture and how we can blend those things. So from the student end, we can still appreciate and have the experience of what going through high school means and developing more independence and ownership, but also have the interdependence piece where we care for each other and understand perseverance and how to support each other through adversities and struggles and hard times and make things better for each other along the way. So it's a combination of all those things. We don't dictate anything top down to them. It all comes from the middle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to say thank you very much for your presentation. It's always wonderful to hear what's going on at the high school and the good work that is being done here. You mentioned that that work is not done yet from last year in the responsible decision making, and that you found already that there's been an initial impact of fewer disciplinary incidents compared to where we were last year. Has there been any other effects on have you seen any other effect of the responsible decision making instruction that's been going on here besides the discipline lowering?
I think that culture of students being willing to talk to, not just to each other, but willing to step forward and speak to adults about things that they see going on as well. Sometimes it's things that require action, and sometimes it's conversations about things that could maybe just help us be more comfortable with each other and help us feel more free to be able to express comments to each other. One of the adjustments that we're making as we go along, just with advisory time, what you saw was a small breakout in advisory and you walked through, and we did have advisories initially in some larger settings, but we had the teachers talk in a faculty council and talk with some students about, this might be better if we can break it into a little bit of smaller group so we get a little bit more of an intimate setting where we could feel comfortable with each other. So we broke those out, and we continued to look for rooms, and we broke out most of our big groups. What points to kids are able to have these discussions, as soon as we did that, I had a student come talk to me about how valuable they thought the big groups were, and have that other point of view. And we were able to have a discussion and explain, why we thought breaking it out into the smaller groups would be beneficial. And the student said, well, I understand that. I didn't really think of it that way, And so there's a lot of discussions that I think are taking place where, previously I think the office was an area that people looked like you don't want to go there. You don't want to be called down to the office. But now I think it's become a place that, the kids do come down just to talk to us a little bit, and we're starting to see those more relaxed conversations. I think our staff has always had a close connection with kids, but I think we're starting to see them open up a little bit more, even about the things that generally students may reserve to themselves to talk and seek help about. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, approval of minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 5th regular meeting?
Motion to approve the October 5th, 2015 regular meeting.
Is there a second? Jennifer, any questions, omissions, corrections?
Madam Chair, I was not present, and I think it has me as present.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Abstention? Okay. Can I have a motion for the October 13th, 2015 special meeting, please?
Motion to approve the October 13, 2015 special meeting.
Is there a second? Second. Any additions, omissions, or corrections? All those in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, information and proposals, board committee reports. Mr. Babrick, is there a finance and facilities report?
Yes, the Finance Committee continues to be informed of the current unanticipated expenses due to costs above and beyond the budgeted costs for special education. While the administration has taken steps to handle what is thrown at them from a cost perspective, whether it's managing risk, expenditures, and/or capital, unanticipated costs in this area are difficult, if not impossible, to anticipate. As Mr. McGliverty shared with me, challenging environments have become the norm in this area, and daily efforts are being expended to manage the costs. The biggest challenge and unknown is what cuts, if any, the state will implement on the monies the state legally owes the district for the state contribution for education. That's it for the finance report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Pension Committee, is there a report?
Yes, there is. The Region 15 Pension Committee recently met with the Byrne Wealth Management and conducted our quarterly plan review for 9/30/2015. Considering current market volatility and the impact national and global economics are having on the domestic equity market, bond market, we continue to manage, and the bond market, we continue to manage with Byrne, the asset and our asset managers of our portfolio, all they navigate through these turbulent times. We continue to perform in line with benchmarks in each of the market segments for the year to date and quarter, slightly outperforming indexes in the fixed income category, the mid-cap category, and are holding a strong cash position for possible shift in our holdings, looking for a buy opportunity given the current market and economy. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a P&C report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. PNC had a meeting on September 28th. It was a mega meeting. It was very long, but very good, and I'd like to thank Mr. Gustenberg, his interim assistant superintendent, for pulling it all together. We had a lot of distinguished guests. In addition to Mr. Gustenberg and superintendent, we had both principals of the middle schools, as well as Mrs. Schiaretto, Director of Student Services, Ms. Zwick, Director of Guidance, Ms. Schultz, Assistant Principal at RMS, and Ms. Bork, Assistant Principal at Memorial. The committee received several presentations. One was on the middle school study that is ongoing. I'd like to remind the committee of the following. I'd like to remind the board of the following. This committee is in place. It has already explored the various items being reviewed and a timeline for those items. So some areas for review are length of present periods in the middle school, a possible need for change. They're focusing on discussing the ELT period. Maybe that may undergo some revision. Lunch, recess times, the restructure of health and education program, that's on the table as well. So just about anything going on at the middle school is going to be looked at by the current middle school study. And the committee, the P&C committee, asked for Mr. Gustenberg to come back and provide a mid-year update and to try and give us some hints as to what might be on deck for next year in terms of changes and what may have to wait for the year after. The committee also had a developmental guidance curriculum review preliminary presentation. So the guidance curriculum is undergoing review this year as well. And so Ms. Zwick and Mrs. Schiaretto presented their initial work on that, and then they're going to come back at the end of the year to give us conclusions on what that committee finds. We also had an update from Mr. Gustenberg on all the summer curriculum work. I am not going to read it all to you now, but when you get the minutes in the packet for the next meeting, you can see all the work that was done for summer curriculum. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions of Steve? Okay. PTO advisory, was there?
No report.
No
They meet
report,
next
okay,
week.
thank you. Okay, board member comments?
I have a comment, if I may. I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate all the participants in the Emergency Management District-wide weather drill that was recently held here at PHS. The participants were the town of Middlebury, town of Southbury, and Region 15. It was a day-long event on a school day, although it did not require student involvement. The tested emergency response and protocols proved to be highly regarded by the Southbury Emergency Management team. It's nice to say that our students are as safe as possible due to the diligent work by Mr. McLiverty and the emergency team. Region 15 can be very proud of the results of that exercise. And to that end, I believe the Republican American reported and had quite a large report about the success of that emergency test. So to all those who participated and make our schools safe, I'd just like to go on record and say thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Paul. Any other board member comments? Okay. That's good to know, Paul. Thank you. Superintendent's report.
The board has the personnel report. Item 2 is listed on the agenda as ADM. ADM stands for the average daily membership. That is a calculation that is taken on October 1st of each school year. And the calculation is the number of students in attendance in Region 15 from Middlebury and the number of students in attendance in Region 15 from Southbury. That number determines the proportional share of the school budget that is allocated to each town in the next budget cycle. So the numbers that were calculated as of last October 1st will give us the proportional share for the 16-17 budget. And on October 1st this year, Middlebury's enrollment was down by 3 students as compared to the year before, and Southbury's enrollment was down by 66 students. What that means is that Middlebury's proportional share increases slightly. The amount is actually 0.4931 of 1%, so a little bit less than 1/2 of 1% is the increase for Middlebury's share, and Southbury's share decreases by that exact same percentage. The result is that for the 16-17 budget, Middlebury's share will be rounded 32.08% of the entire budget, and Southbury's will be 67.92%, again rounded. And the third item on the agenda, at the board meeting in September, as Mr. Longarini mentioned, the board approved a long-term goal about student learning expectations in the 21st century, identifying the 6 items that Mr. Longarini presented to us: critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, communication, global citizenship, and character. This will drive our work now and in the future. And certainly there is much good work ahead of us. Also, there is a lot of good work already in progress. So what I'd like to do is to show you a very short video clip of our high school art students highlighting some of those expectations in their work.
Here at Pomperaug High School, the Visual Arts Department strives for excellence in creating students with strong critical thinking and communication skills. We also work hard to foster innovative thinkers and conscientious global citizens. Students at Pomperaug hone their critical thinking skills across all the visual arts programs offered here at PHS. In the drawing and painting, ceramics and pottery, photography, sculpture, and crafts programs, students work independently, collaboratively, and with the instructor to critique their own work as well as the work of other students. These programs also offer students the opportunity to analyze and critique the work of master artists, both current and historic. Here, critical thinking skills are used to self-assess, problem solve, and create new approaches to their work. These skills are used to aid students in understanding components of good composition in both two-dimensional and three-dimensional works of art. Using a variety of different media, these skills enable students to problem solve, formulate new solutions, and cultivate technique. Communication also plays a major role in the visual arts department. Students learn that art is a language. Artists in these programs use a variety of different media and techniques to communicate their ideas, emotions, and thoughts through their work. Symbolism, both cultural and personal, is a key part of this, as students create works of art with meaning and purpose. It is through their use of critical thinking skills that the students in the visual arts programs learn to be innovative and creative. Throughout many projects in all the visual arts programs offered here at Pomperaug, students are encouraged to come up with new and innovative ways to approach problems and troubleshoot issues. Whether it is compositional, structural, or symbolic, students work diligently to be innovative. Lastly, the PHS Visual Arts Department strives to create strong global citizens. In looking at works of art from around the world and studying different cultures, students gain an understanding that the visual arts have been an important part of global history. Through these programs, students learn that visual arts are a language that brings the world closer together. By working collaboratively and maintaining proper studio etiquette, the visual arts student grows more responsible for the world around them. Some students have even chosen to participate in the Empty Bowls charity project, which aids the local food banks here in Connecticut by donating pottery they have made. Students also participate in field trips, state and national art competitions, and regional art shows, and art shows throughout the community. The student takes part in setting up and breaking down these shows, and participation far beyond the creation of the artwork. As you can see, the Visual Arts Department works collectively to create students with the skills needed for the 21st century. Pomparog art educators guide students in becoming strong visual and critical thinkers, strong visual communicators, innovative producers, and problem solvers. These teachers also aid students in becoming productive global citizens, and of course, it is our goal to help students become lifelong lovers and learners of the visual arts.
So in that short video, the purpose was not necessarily to go into the why or the how. There is not yet a clear definition of exactly what does critical thinking mean. How exactly do we identify creativity when we see it? What does it look like? That is much of the work that is ahead of us. But what you could hear clearly through this video was really a commitment to those 6 areas that the board has already approved. In the research, we call this kind of consistency coherence. And when we all work together, the Board of Education, the administration, and the teachers, in a coherent way with a clear vision for moving forward, that's how we do the very best for our students. And that's what I hope that you would hear in this short video. So thank you.
Mrs. Botsford, that was such a well-made video. Can you tell me how that was put together like that? Did one of the other departments have anything to do with that?
You know, honestly, I am not sure, but I have a feeling that if Mr. Stuyvesant is listening to us behind closed doors, he might be able to come out and tell us. Ah, Mr. Longarini knows.
I believe that Mr. Santamaria.
There he is.
Todd, with the video that was produced by the art, Mr. Santamaria came down and I'll step up for the mic. I'll step up for the mic so you guys can hear me. So the video was really more of a collaborative project. Dave Santamaria came to me with this idea, and I showed him how to use the camera, and they borrowed a camera from the library, and he came back into the studio and recorded his script that him and the rest of the art department put together, and it was really a pretty easy process on my end. It more had to do with the art department putting that together, and I just kind of helped to get him there. So, yeah, it was a good collaborative project. Any other questions about that?
No, I was saying Jana was right. The lighting on that was unusual. It just added, to the artistic effect of the whole video.
I know Dave Santamaria taught some digital arts down at the middle school as well. So other than just the ceramics, he has some good fundamentals as far as getting good shots and things like that. So, yeah, credit goes to him. He did a nice job on it.
Well, and I just wanted to add that your presence here at PHS is going to be missed. I saw you on our personnel report.
I'm really torn with the decision that I have to make. Region 15, Pomparog High School, really means a lot to me. The students that I have, what I've been able to, where I've been able to take a lot of these students. That's what I got into education for in the first place. This is really my dream job. It's just that, my wife got this offer in a dream location, and she doesn't have any experience in special ed yet, and I think that's what's really holding her back at this point. And I think it's going to mean the world for me, or mean the world for her, for me to back her up on this one and give it a try out there. And
It's a happy wife, happy life. Exactly. Any other questions for me? Okay, you guys take care.
Best wishes to you. Comments from citizens?
Good evening. My name is Mike Rosen. I'm from Southbury. My son Eli is a sophomore right here at PHS. My daughter Amelia is in 7th grade at Rochambeau Middle School. I had two things. I wanted to thank Mr. Longarini and thank Superintendent Botsford and her team. My son has been one of those who will benefit, I hope, from the presentation that Glenn made a few moments ago. He has been the victim of anti-Semitism in our halls, in our classrooms, in our cafeteria, and on our fields, both here at PHS and dating back to his times at Pomfrey Elementary School. And I'm optimistic based on the response we got when we expressed our concerns at the end of last school year when an incident happened, and again at the beginning of this school year from Regina and Glenn, and I thank you for taking this seriously. It'll be to the benefit of the entire community. I actually that was not my reason for initially speaking, but having seen Glenn's presentation, I wanted to bring that up. I do want to bring to the board's attention a letter to the editor that ran both in, the version I'm going to read is from the B News, the website of the B Intelligencer here in Middlebury, but I believe it also ran in Voices, and it was from Mr. Baberick, and it was regarding elderly tax relief, which you don't necessarily think has a relationship to the Board of Ed in our school district. But there is a paragraph in the letter to the editor I'd like to read and just ask for some clarification because I believe it affects all of our students and families and seniors. And it says this, and I have a copy of that I'm more than glad to share. It says, keeping our elderly residents in Middlebury improves property values. It also reduces property taxes since fewer students will attend our public schools, therefore reducing educational budgets that have a direct impact on our property taxes. Once again, helping the elderly helps all the citizens of Middlebury. So the question I have is, are you suggesting, and I'd like to hear from the board as well, that the goal is to suppress enrollment, which we know has been an issue over the past few years in our region? Is the goal to continue to suppress enrollment? Shouldn't the goal be to create a culture of educational excellence and create a community that new young families want to move to because of our schools? And doesn't that create a community that is a vibrant community that celebrates the multi-generational diversity of both Middlebury and Southbury that is, I believe, the strongest asset of our community? And I've been here for 6 years, having come from Long Island. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Baberick and anyone else who'd like to address that question. Thank you.
Can I just do a point of order here, Madam Chair? That this is not on the agenda. So we are really legally precluded from entering a discussion about something that's not on the agenda. I'd be happy to see it on a future agenda so we could discuss it if it was.
And I would be more than glad to come back and talk about it one-on-one or as a group.
We are sort of legally bound not to have a discussion about things that are not on our agendas.
I'd also like to add, Mr. Rosen, that I did not see the letter that Mr. Baberick wrote. But it was not, he wasn't representing the board. I'm sure, I don't want to speak for him, but was not representing the board when he wrote that letter. Obviously, it was his own personal opinion. And as Janet suggested, I think maybe the two of you, ought to have a conversation on exactly what was meant.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I would have no problem having a one-on-one conversation with you about that. And I would like to make it very clear, I was not speaking for the board. I was speaking as chairman of the Elderly Tax Relief Committee, which I'm chairman of in our town, so, but I'm glad to talk to you even after this about that.
Fantastic. We've had good conversations before. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the public? Okay, there being none, we have no old business. Under new business requiring board action, I need a motion of approval of a deletion of policy number 6144, program of instruction.
Motion to approve the deletion of policy number 6144, program of instruction.
Any questions of regarding this motion?
Excuse me. Are we doing this because it's a new law or a change in the law? One of the-
The policy that we are deleting was actually replaced by a policy we approved in June. Policy 6178 was approved in June, and that covers the business about the instructional material. If you look at the policy, we want to delete the top half also pertains to statute, and we also figured that, well, if it's the law, then it doesn't necessarily need to be in the policy. That clear it up?
It's basically a law change.
No, I think it just came about, it just was, we got rid of the top half, and then the bottom half was placed into into policy 6178. Okay, so this half is gone, the other half's in the other policy.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, unanimous, thank you. Announcement of future meeting dates. Tomorrow evening on Tuesday, October 22nd, the Norms Ad Hoc Committee will be meeting at 7 o'clock. Monday, November 9th, the Board of Education meeting will be held here at 7:30. Wednesday, November 11th, Finance and Facilities Committee will be meeting at Central Office at 5:30. And Wednesday, the same date, November 11th, the Board of Education special meeting, workshop discussion of board goals on developing the effectiveness of senior leadership team will be held at the Central Office at 7 p.m. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I was just wondering, with the last meeting, if when that's noticed, it should say goals and norms. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice a bit. I said I was just wondering with the last meeting, when it's noticed, if it should say discussion of board goals and board norms, since we're planning a discussion on that as well.
Yeah, I don't have, that's fine. And just add board norms. Okay, will do. Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? We are adjourned.